Hello and welcome to Bristol Reptile and Ponds YouTube channel. I'm Gail.
And I'm Michelle.
And today we are going to talk about millipedes. Now we do have some in our hands. You might not be able to see this far away, so we will be flashing up some videos and some shots of them so you can get a better view. So first of all, we got two different types here. What have we got here, Michelle?
So Gail, you've got the red millipede, or one of the varieties which have got red coloration in them, and I've got the African trained millipedes. Now, we will just say that this is an overview of millipedes as a group. So this isn't just these two species we're focusing on, and there are quite a lot of millipedes species-wise in regards to availability. And I'm not saying they're all available to hobbyists, but I am saying that there's a lot of variety, so you need to make sure you know what variety you intend to keep and do your research with each individual species in mind, because there's something like over 10,000 species of millipede in the world.
Wow, that is quite a lot of different millipedes.
Yes, so that's why we need to make sure we're checking per species.
Right, okay, so we're just going to give a general overview. So generally then, how long do these live for?
So some of the larger species you could get in the region of 10 years out of them.
Oh, quite a while. That's impressive. And I guess size varies massively, as we can see here. The red one's a lot smaller than that one. Is there a big size or a small size, or?
Yeah, so again, depending on your species, it will affect the size that they reach as adults. So I've got one of the bigger species here, so the African trains, and you've got one which is more medium size in comparison, but there is massive variability with this. So you do want to make sure that you know how big your animal is going to get, and obviously size will affect enclosure. So we want to make sure that we're doing that research before we invest in the enclosure, so we've got the right size.
Okay. And what type of food do these guys eat?
So millipedes are primarily found on the forest floor, and they are basically eating the detritus, so all the leaf litter and particles that are falling from the canopy down onto the floor. So they do need an element of fresh fruit or veg in the diet, because obviously that will be falling from the canopy too, but a large percentage of it is things like leaf litter and particles like that, which they'll be feeding on most of the time. Okay,
and how often would we feed them?
So that food's going to be available to them. The leaf litter is going to be part of how you set up your enclosure, and they're going to be able to graze on that as and when they want to, because that's kind of what they're doing, is grazing when they choose. And then I would suggest putting something fresh. It doesn't need to be mass volumes of fresh food, but I would kind of rotate fresh food every other day or maybe every third day, removing it before it's spoiled, basically.
Right, okay. Obviously you can handle these guys?
You can. There is something to be aware of with millipedes. So millipedes can release iodine, and some people are more sensitive to the form. I'm not saying it's pure iodine, it's a chemical buildup that they can release. So it's a defense mechanism against predators, and the purpose being is that anything that thinks that they like to eat it as a tasty snack, pick it up, pop it into its mouth. The millipede can then excrete this toxin, and obviously the predatory item may then decide, I'm not going to eat that, it tastes vile, and spit it out, basically.
Right.
That's the concept. With that in mind, some people's skin is sensitive to this, so you do need to be aware of it, especially with young children. For some people it will cause no irritation at all, it might just cause a slight discoloration when they excrete it, but for other people their skin can be very sensitive to it.
Okay, so assuming that you can handle it and you're not sensitive to the stuff that's released, how often can we handle them?
So I mean, these are really popular with like educational talks and displays, because they are quite tolerant. Once your millipede is used to being handled, they can be handled almost daily, every other day, for short periods of time, so they don't want to be handled for hours and hours on end, but short periods of time, generally not a problem for them.
Okay, that's good to know. So moving on to enclosures, what type can we house these in?
So glass and acrylic or plastic is very popular to house inverts in, because obviously they do need a bit of humidity as well, not massive but just a little bit, and they're more durable with those types of conditions. So most people would house them in something which is around 30 centimetres square, or possibly something that's a little bit longer than that, so anything up to about 60 centimetres in length, to, you know, between 1 foot and 2 foot, depending on the species, how many you've got, and how you want the decor to look within the enclosure as well.
Right, okay. Do we need to provide light?
Not so much really with these guys. So they are found on the forest floor, which is a darker environment. They're found in leaf litter, so they're not light responsive like some of the animals that we keep. So a lot of people will just keep them with the lighting that's found in the room which they're being kept.
Okay, and what about heat?
So yep, obviously most of the species that are kept by hobbyists are not found within the UK. In this case, this is an African trained millipede. So we are looking for slightly warmer temperatures than some people may have in their home in the UK. So there are some places that you might not need to provide additional heat. If you have a particularly hot house, you may be fine, but in some cases, especially through the winter months, you may be needing to use a small heat mat as an additional heat source for them. If they get too cold, it does have serious effect on them.
Okay. Well, what sort of, do we provide water?
So millipedes will drink.
Okay.
Obviously they're an invertebrate, so we don't want to enable them to have a water container that they could fall into and drown. But some people do supply very small dishes of water, and misting is another great way, because obviously it provides water droplets that they can drink from as well.
Right. So what type of substrate do we have on the bottom of their enclosures?
Well, they're actually going to help us with their substrate, which makes it quite beneficial, because as they're processing leaf litter and other particles of wood that we're popping in for them, they're going to break that down into a smaller particle, so you know they aid and abet in that. But we do need to start off with something on the bottom so that they can dig down into it. You know, helps with their exoskeleton condition as well. Also, we need to provide calcium for the exoskeleton too. So as well as anything fresh, some people will use either a very small amount of cuttlefish or pure calcium so that the animals have that for the density of the exoskeleton. Because like other inverts, in order to increase in size, to take the entire outside of their skin off, as it were.
Right.
So most people will start off with a soil-based substrate or a cocoa fibre-based substrate. Some people mix their own so that they've got a little bit of both, and then they pop in their leaf litter on top of that, and that starts to process the substrate for them and produce a really nice medium at the bottom of the enclosure once they go in.
Oh, great. And do we put anything else in the enclosure? Any decor or anything like that?
Anything that you put in, if it's natural, they will use. So if it's anything that's wood-based, you may find the millipedes actually chewing on it, because that's part of what they'd be breaking down, looking for that nutrients, and especially as that wood starts to soften with the humidity in the environment. So that's great. Some people do use artificial hides and things like that with millipedes too, just to provide a bit more variation and to make the enclosure look a bit nicer, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Okay. Thank you for watching Bristol Reptile Emporium's YouTube channel.
Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next week for another video. Bye!
Bye!